Okay, James. So the one that I worked out here actually came off of one of the reviews that you have. I'm pretty sure they keep the numbers the same, when I pull up your review. Anyway, it does have two radicals in it, so it's kind of like one that you requested. So what you need to do when you start these off is you need to break up the radicals. You need to get one on each side of the equation. So I just subtracted the square root of x minus 8 to make that happen, creating what you see here. Once I've isolated one of the radicals, I can then square both sides to make that come out of the radicals. So when you square the square root of x, it's the square root of x times the square root of x, which is the square root of x squared, which is where I'm getting that plain x from, okay? So the theme of things falling out of the radical when you square it will continue to happen, okay? And squaring this, it's really a binomial. You'll see that I kind of did that over here so that you could see basically what a lot of people call FOIL occurring, multiplying the first two together, 2 times 2, getting the 4, multiplying the outside together, getting minus 2 square roots of x minus 8, multiplying the inside 2, getting the same thing, minus 2 square roots of x minus 8, and the last two together, negative times a negative gives you a positive, and again, since you're essentially squaring the square root of x minus 8, you'll see that it fell out of the radical here, okay? So no radical there. From what you see here, basically, I'll just combine like terms. I'll say like 4 minus 8 is going to give me a negative 4. So you'll see that occurring here, and then that little lonely x is there, and then I combine these two guys because they match underneath the radical. So minus 2 square roots of x minus 8 minus 2 square roots of x minus 8 is a total of negative 4 square roots of x minus 8. And you'll see me going to isolate this radical now because that's the process. You've got to work to isolate the radicals before you can square it to get them out of the radical. You'll see me adding 4, subtracting x to get that stuff moved over. Subtracting x ends up wiping out the x's, adding 4 ends up giving me a positive 4 here. Then I bring this down with that, negative sign. Divide by a negative 4 to finally isolate that radical. Positive divided by negative gives you negative. Now that we have it isolated, we then squared it. When you square a negative, you're going to get a positive. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. And when you square a radical like this, you're going to have it fall out of the radical. So that's where I'm getting the x minus 8. Add 8 to both sides. We're proposing that x is positive 9. So what we want to do before finalizing our answer is substitute it back into check. You want to be in the habit of doing that with all of your radicals because a lot of times you can have, answers that don't end up working out, okay? So we put that back in the original equation. You have the square root of 9 for the square root of x. So we're proposing that 9 is the solution. The square root of 9 minus 8 equals 2. Well, 9 minus 8 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. So we're essentially asking, is 3 plus 1 2? And it is not. That's why the solution is the empty set. So this one was kind of unique, but it is the same process. No matter what type of radical equation you're trying to solve, you want to isolate the radical, square both sides, and solve. Sometimes you have to repeat that process. If you've got two radicals, you want to isolate one of them and then work to isolate the other one, but it's the same process, okay? And always check your solutions, and usually they tell you, check all proposed solutions or whatever, so you don't forget to. If you have any questions, just let me know.